So you want to get into the super deformed action figure business. What is the super deformed action figure business? Well, you're looking at it. Funko tends to be the king of it, in America at least. And a big part of that is because of the selection of characters and the joy that this brings to fans. But they're not the only player in the super deformed market. There's a lot of companies and a lot of different scales. And it's a form that tends to attract a lot of new licensors, because if you could come up with a super deformed form factor, well, you're printing your own money, because if you can create a form factor that you can literally paint on with very little additional tooling, where the same basic concept can be many, many different characters, well, that is a great position to be in from a manufacturing standpoint. And it's one of the reasons that super deformed figures tend to be a less costly option, because there's very minimal deco, there's very minimal sculpting. Usually the same bodies are shared. Some characters need fully new sculpts, others just need new heads. But most of the detail work is done through deco. Now, when we talk about this as a super deformed category, that's what the toy industry calls it, sort of like they call action figures doinky doink play or dolls hair play. Super deformed is because the characters have a feature exaggerated. Now, it's a concept that comes from Japan. As an island nation, Japan has sort of created its own culture, and as part of that, it has its own toy culture, which has evolved a little bit differently from toy culture in the US and even Europe. So the super deformed vinyl trend that started in Japan in the 70s and 80s, usually with enlarged heads, enlarged eyes, and a smaller body and limb. In fact, they even have a character called Super Deformed, who has a comic book series. Hey, cute, right? So that's where it comes from. It comes from Japanese culture, and it's been translated into American pop culture by multiple companies. Now, while form factors and the super deformed category is absolutely on the grow, it is something where you have to be very conscious of different factors, such as whether or not the line is all-inclusive or not, or whether it actually embraces fans or is just spitting things out mindlessly in a form factor that no one has created an emotional attachment to. And then finally, it has to be looked at as a low-priced option compared to more expensive action figures. So scale, character design, specific look can vary, and different companies have taken different approaches to the super deformed category. Usually it involves an elongated or larger head with smaller limbs, but that's not always the same. And sometimes even action features have evolved into this form factor, although not with much success. You may recall the Mighty Mugs that Hasbro put out. This is actually their 2.0 Mighty Mug, where you would press down on the head and it would cause the internal mechanism to spin, showing 3 different eyes or facial features. Usually, so much comes through in the eyes, like with Spidey here. So this was a way of Hasbro bringing back Mighty Mugs to continue to compete against Funko, but that's not where Mighty Mugs started. Years ago, they looked like this, which I think was actually the superior product, but that's not important right now. Mighty Mugs started off, again, just as a very generic shape that with minimal tooling, sometimes Iron Man's helmet or Thor's helmet needed, wings. But for the most part, it was a form factor that required very few additional parts and was just deco. It was a way of collecting a favorite character at another scale. And if a company can own a scale and a form factor that they can produce almost any IP under, like I said, you're printing your own money at that point, because you can take the same basic Iron Man shape and turn it into Indiana Jones. But that is exactly what the problem is that, well, there really isn't any toy company that has access to unlimited IP. I mean, Funko does a really great job, and they probably have more than anyone else, but they also have limited form factors to offer their product at. They've got more than just, the Funko Pop, but it is their main bread and butter. So, kind of going back to what I said at the very beginning of this video, in order to have a very successful super deformed toy line, you have to be all-inclusive, meaning you have to have access to a ton of different IP. No one is going to jump into a proprietary form factor unless it's showing off IP they're already fans of. So as an example, with the Mighty Mugs that Hasbro put out, if you wanted to get a Mighty Mug Fantastic Four thing, awesome, because Hasbro has the Master Toy license, well, at the time, to Marvel. Same thing with Star Wars. You could get a Mighty Mugs Obi-Wan Kenobi, even with a removable lightsaber. Awesome. So if you're a fan of the Fantastic Four, or you're a fan of the Jedi Order, you're all set. But let's say you're a fan of the Dark Knight and patrolling the streets of Gotham. You're basically out of luck when it comes to Mighty Mugs. There's never going to be a Batman Mighty Mug. You have to turn to Funko or just even a traditional action figure to get your Batman plastic figurine fix. So with Hasbro, with their Mighty Mugs program, they were limited to what they owned or what they currently licensed, which, granted, was a lot, but not everything. And Hasbro, Mattel, Spin Master, there's no toy company out there that has the master license for all toys out there. And these large companies experimenting with form factors is kind of like shooting themselves in the foot, because eventually you're going to run out of characters, because you're going to run out of brands, because you're not limitless, because you have overhead and you have to focus on the aspects of running a toy company. Smaller companies like Funko can reach out to almost any license. You can get almost anything in a Funko Pop these days. I mean, obviously, except for Eric Larson's Savage Dragon, more's the pity. Hello, Funko, make it happen. But what they've done is they've embraced the concept that everyone is a fan of something. So they can take one form factor and blow that out if they can acquire the license to the IP, the intellectual property, for almost any property out there. That is what the success is built on. One form factor, many licenses. But looking at the reverse, more fans are fans of properties. So Funko's limited in the ways they can take a character like Greedo and extrapolate that into different ways that a consumer can buy them using their form factor. They can turn their form factor into a Pez dispenser or a pen, but they're never going to be able to just create unlimited form factors. Fans are not going to have shelf space for this. And any other large toy company that is trying to break into this is going to find themselves very quickly limited when they realize that, oh, yeah, we can only make these for the IP that we own. The nice thing about the kind of rise of the super deformed collectible is it really has expanded a lot of collectors' attitudes towards the hobby, where we have started expanding what we get beyond action figures and to collecting things that are sort of action figure adjacent. So in a sense, the super deformed form factor has really done a lot of positive for collecting, for the toy industry as a total. It's brought a lot more shelf space to popular culture. But if you're a new toy company and you're looking at getting into this, make sure you've got the license for a lot of characters first, because you'll stumble. And if you're limited, like Hasbro was with Mighty Mugs, you're basically creating a recipe that eventually is going to fail. It's all about IP and all about character access. I hope this video was a little insightful about the super deformed form factor, its birth, and its ongoing collectability. What are your favorite things to collect? Do you collect by form factor or do you collect by character? I'd like to know. Let me know in the comments below. For me, Shazam, Captain Marvel. I'll get him in anything. Funko, action figure, toothbrush. Do they have a toothbrush? I don't think they have a Shazam toothbrush, but they should. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing, and I'll see you next time.